This is CGTN, China Global Television Network.
The WHO says vaccine nationalism puts the world on the brink of catastrophic moral failure. South Africa struggles against a persistent COVID-19 surge. And the United States gets ready for the presidential inauguration amid growing security concerns. Hello and a very warm welcome to Africa Live on CGTN. I'm Lindy Mtongana in Nairobi. Also ahead this hour. In business, Nigeria to sanction firms that violate laws governing the hiring of expatriates. And in sports, Nigeria's Chinonso Eche sets the world record in freestyle football at just 12 years old. In our top story this hour, the World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus has warned that the world is on the brink of catastrophic moral failure when it comes to sharing COVID-19 vaccines. Tedros is urging countries and manufacturers to spread doses more fairly around the world, saying the prospects for equitable distribution were at serious risk. He gave the example that more than 39 million vaccine doses have been administered in 49 higher-income countries, whereas just 25 doses had been given in one poor country. The global scramble for shots has intensified as more infectious variants circulate.
I need to be blunt. The world is on the brink of a catastrophic moral failure. And the price of this failure will be paid with lives and livelihoods in the world's poorest countries. Even as they speak the language of equitable access, some countries and companies continue to prioritize bilateral deals, going around COVAX, driving up prices, and attempting to jump to the front of the queue. This is wrong. 44 bilateral deals were signed last year, and at least 12 have already been signed this year. Not only does this me-first approach leave the world's poorest and most vulnerable people at risk, it's also self-defeating. Ultimately, these actions will only prolong the pandemic, prolong our pain. The restrictions needed to contain it, and human and economic suffering.
Well, to shed more light on the vaccine distribution dilemma, we're now joined from Addis Ababa by Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, the Deputy Director at the Africa CDC, who joins us via Zoom. Doctor, the World Health Organization is already saying that prospects for the equitable distribution of vaccines are at serious risk. In your view, where is Africa in this global scramble for shots?
Thank you for having me. Africa has not yet received any significant amounts of the vaccines that have received emergency use authorization. And as Africa CDC and the Africa Union, under the leadership of the chairperson of the Africa Union, His Excellency Cyril Ramaphosa, we have been engaging with vaccine manufacturers, and so far we have secured 270 million doses that are going to be distributed across the continent so that vaccination can be able to start sometime in March. But in as far as the global trends are concerned, for sure, it is not a very good state of affairs that Africa has not yet received vaccines for COVID-19. It is a skewed situation that needs to be corrected and needs to be corrected urgently, because wherever COVID is, the whole globe will still be at risk.
Absolutely. Now, you did mention, of course, that the African Union has procured 270 million doses of vaccines, but many countries are hoping to get a piece of that pie. Just Nigeria, as an example, is requesting 10 million COVID vaccines from the African Union, as well as several other countries doing the same. So how does the body then plan to ensure equitable distribution on the continent of those vaccines, particularly in reaching the most vulnerable people on the continent?
We are looking at this in two stages. The first stage is actually acquiring the vaccines, which we are continuing to do. And part of the first stage is a distribution plan to each and every one of our 55 member states. The formula we are using is really very simple. We are using population because to reach herd immunity, our aim as Africa CDC is to reach 60% of the population on the continent. So each country needs to vaccinate at least 60%. So we're using population to be able to make the distribution, and then each country will then be getting those amounts that we have calculated as the vaccines arrive. For countries that are asking, we have the requests, and we are going to facilitate them getting these vaccines as soon as we receive the go-ahead from the manufacturers. Each country will get an equitable amount, and that is what we are pushing for globally as well, not just in Africa.
We are seeing some countries going the route of making their own bilateral agreements directly with manufacturers. How does the Africa CDC feel about this, particularly since there are now new variants of the coronavirus emerging?
First, the issue of variants, although it is clear that the new variants are more transmissible, there is still no evidence that they will escape the current vaccines that have received emergency use authorization. Secondly is countries in Africa are sovereign, and they can be able to make their own direct arrangements. What we are saying as Africa CDC is that we want to be sure that any vaccine that is being delivered onto this continent is of good quality, it is safe, and it is efficacious. In this way, each and every vaccination, each and every dose will count towards keeping Africa safer. We are encouraging all member states of the Africa Union to go through the established process with the Africa CDC so that we are sure that what we are receiving is a good vaccine and is going to make us a big impact in as far as bringing down the COVID-19 numbers on the continent are concerned. But each member state, of course, as a sovereign nation, can be able to make its own arrangements. What we are encouraging them to do is to ensure that they are following a process that is going to ensure safety and efficacy of the vaccine.
Dr. Ahmed Ogwell, thank you so much for your time. The Deputy Director of the Africa CDC, there joining us via Zoom from Addis Ababa. Now, medical staff in South Africa are working around the clock to deal with a surge in coronavirus cases. Health facilities and mortuaries have recorded full capacity. The new COVID-19 variant identified in South Africa is escalating the situation. The fastest spreading variant is the main driver of the second wave of infections in the country. Doctors hope vaccines will work against the new variant. And earlier this month, new cases hit a daily high of over 21,000 cases. Meanwhile, South Africa's coronavirus death toll has surpassed 37,000 since the pandemic first hit.
In general, we have reasons to be concerned because it seems like the virus has found a way to escape from previous antibodies. Well, the world has underestimated this virus. This virus can evolve, it can adapt.
Our immune systems are extraordinarily clever. So although there may be small changes in the virus, and therefore the antibodies may not be binding as well, there may be compensation through other arms of the immune system that allow the vaccines to still work.
Well, let's bring you more on the situation in South Africa. We're now joined from Johannesburg by CGTN's Angela Coppola. Angela, as we're hearing, medical practitioners are warning that this latest wave of infections threatens to overrun both public and private hospitals. Give us an idea of what the situation is like at the moment.
Well, look, Lindy, at the moment, according to the Health Minister, Zweli Mkhize, and he was speaking to those frontline healthcare workers last night, he says this week has seen some promising signs of decline in the number of transmissions. On Monday, he noted, in fact, that there was a 23% decrease in new cases nationally, and that's compared to the last 7 days before that. But it's not all good news. Mkhize says the healthcare system is experiencing significant strain at the moment. Hospitalizations continue to trend upwards, he says, showing an 18.3% increase on the 16th of January alone, and that was compared to the 7 days before that. As of the 16th of January, there were 17,870 patients that were admitted, with 2,472 of those in ICU, 1,117 of those on, in fact, ventilators, and 5,850 requiring oxygen. Mkhize says this is a significant additional strain and burden on the system. The second wave that we spoke about now is also going to be a major issue, and that's because the new variant that appeared in the Eastern Cape, in fact, a couple of months ago, is moving a lot faster. It's known as 501.2, and it actually spreads at around 50% faster than the previous variant that has been recorded. And while it's not more deadly, the jury is still out concerning the ability of the current vaccine to be effective against the spread of the virus. So the system remains constrained, and scientists continue to research whether the vaccine is in fact going to be able to do the job. Frontline staff, in the meantime, are working, doing their sterling jobs, saving those lives, and getting little credit for what they're actually doing, Lindy.
They certainly are heroes in this very difficult time. Thank you so much, Angela Coppola, live with us there in Johannesburg. And turning to Uganda now, the country is ramping up rapid testing following a surge in COVID-19 cases there. The country is closing in on 40,000 cases and has so far registered more than 300 virus-related deaths. The rapid diagnostic tests have been approved by the World Health Organization, as CGTN's Hilary Ayesiga reports.
Uganda's health ministry says rolling out rapid test kits will increase the number of people being screened for COVID-19. The move will help isolate infected people and their contacts in order to reduce exposure and break transmission.
We already reached the stage 4. We have community transmission. Many people are infected, but we don't know them. Many are asymptomatic. Actually, those who are reporting is an underestimate because we don't test everyone.
The health ministry is now deploying antigen rapid diagnostic testing kits to ease treatment.
We have now 2 kits that we have recommended to be given in a phased-out manner. The one is called the SD biosensor, made in South Korea, and another one is by Abbott. And we have said this should be used in a phased manner in those individuals who are symptomatic, to allow quick decision-making.
The antigen rapid diagnostic testing kits are being deployed to high-risk areas in the country. Health workers are targeting patients with symptoms of COVID-19, frontline health workers, and people in crowded places such as schools and prisons. The Ugandan government is also in the process of procuring vaccines. The jabs are expected to be available in 2 months.
AstraZeneca, initial phase, because initial phase we hadn't mobilized resources, and Gavi is going to give us the first initial 20%. The subsequent government is supposed to mobilize resources on our own, and we are looking at also procuring from China, provided that process is complete.
It's hoped that these interventions by the health ministry could help contain the spread of the virus. Hilary Ayesiga, CGTN, Kampala, Uganda.
You're watching Africa Live. Time now for a short break. Still ahead on the program, the US gets ready for the presidential inauguration amid growing security concerns. And Ugandans relieved after the country eases an internet shutdown imposed over elections.
How will your world change today? What happens here? What happens there? Or what you make happen for yourself. If it matters to you, it matters to us too. Your stories are the stories that need to be told. Africa Live. Find your voice.
I try to not let it affect me, but there are days when it does. I'm a human being, and to see patients in a hospital bed and their family members are not there, there's no one there to hold their hand, that human touch, you know?
I just hope everyone can remember that the situation is not permanent and that everything will get better eventually.
South Africa's President Cyril Ramaphosa says he will step down should he be charged with corruption. Ramaphosa was responding to accusations by former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe. Eskom is a South African electricity public utility, and the former CEO testified at a judicial commission of inquiry into state capture that Ramaphosa was heavily involved in the irregular awarding of contracts at Eskom during his time as deputy president. CGTN's Lindy Mtongana explains.
The Judicial Commission of Inquiry into allegations of state capture is a public inquiry launched by the government to investigate allegations of state capture, corruption, fraud, and other allegations in the public sector, including organs of state. A few days ago, former Eskom CEO Brian Molefe told the commission that President Cyril Ramaphosa had a conflict of interest when he, in his then role as deputy president, was appointed chairperson of Eskom's war room. At the time, Molefe alleges Ramaphosa was still a shareholder at Glencore, an Eskom contractor. Molefe also says Ramaphosa is to blame for the current bouts of load shedding. South Africa has been experiencing rolling power cuts known as load shedding by the struggling power utility Eskom for years. In an interview with the local station, the president denied the allegations, saying he will testify at the State Commission and clarify this.
When I was appointed President of the Republic, Deputy President of the Republic, I immediately wrote a letter to President Zuma and said, I would like to regularize my business holdings. In the end, it led to selling out, exiting many of the business positions that I had at the time through the Shanduka company that I had formed. And I kept to that. I did exit those business dealings, and I am going to be able to explain in full and in detail when I appear before the Zondo Commission.
Ramaphosa further undertook to step down from his position should he be charged with corruption.
If I'm charged with corruption, my own orientation is that yes.
It's not the first time that such allegations against the president have surfaced. Two major opposition political parties have in the past also leveled the same allegations in Parliament.
And I think it is important to remember that these allegations have been made by his own colleagues in Parliament. What has been lacking, and which maybe Brian is trying to do, is to put them before a tribunal. And the tribunal, which is headed by Deputy Chief Justice Sondo, has got to make a decision how they want to investigate these claims.
It is for the president to seek advice on how he is going to approach and probably respond well to these allegations. I mean, they are firm, as I have indicated. Brian understands corporate laws, and regardless of probably whatever is happening as well, that is at state capture. But at the same time, the president just have to go and clarify the nation.
It's still unclear when the president will appear at the State Capture Commission. Yulisa Njamela for CGTN in Johannesburg, South Africa.
To Uganda now, where the internet has partially been restored. Ugandans experienced a 5-day blackout of the internet after it was ordered shut ahead of elections. The easing of restrictions comes now as police announced dozens of arrests. Those arrested were accused of election-related violence. Police have surrounded the headquarters of the main opposition leader, Bobi Wine, who is under house arrest. President Museveni extended his 35 years in power by winning the January 14 election. Bobi Wine, however, has rejected the outcome of the poll, saying it was a sham. A government spokesperson announced the lifting of the internet ban, saying it was shut for national security reasons.
The coming back of the internet is exciting, but if you go back to the issue of security, it is really not bad switching off the internet in order to keep the people in the country calm.
For the last 4 to 5 days, it has been really very bad. In terms even of communicating to friends, family members, yeah, there is a lot that we've lost.
I feel good because I've been offline almost a week, so I feel so good that now we are on, the internet has come back. I missed my WhatsApp, my friends. I could chat with my friends on WhatsApp, on Facebook, chat with my long friends outside abroad. So when the internet came back, so I'm so happy.
Central African Republic's Constitutional Court has upheld the re-election of President Faustin Archange Touadera. The opposition had called for a rerun of the December vote, saying that it had been marred by insecurity and alleged irregularities. The court, however, confirmed Touadera won 53% of the vote amid a turnout of 35%. In the days leading up to the polls last year, a newly forged coalition of militias attempted to advance on the capital, Bangui. The government called it an attempted coup, and just last week, rebels launched their closest attack to the capital, striking 2 locations on the outskirts of the city before being pushed back.
The candidate, Faustin Archange Touadera, has obtained the majority of the valid votes and is proclaimed elected president of the Republic in the first round.
I have held firm to obtain a political agreement for the peace and reconciliation with the armed groups in order to put a definitive end to the cycle of violence that has plummeted our country's chance of development. The day after my investiture, we will pursue the national reconciliation in order to ease the pre- and post-electoral political climate.
Meanwhile, over the weekend, the UN said 2 peacekeepers were killed in yet another rebel attack. This time, the clash took place near the southern city of Bangoso, which the UN had retaken from armed groups who had seized it just 2 weeks earlier.
Sadly, we have to announce that 2 United Nations peacekeepers lost their lives today. This happened on the Bangasu-Gambo axis after peacekeepers came under fire.
To the United States now. The country marked Martin Luther King Day on Monday to honor the civil rights leader and his contributions to the fight for racial justice. In Washington and other parts of the country, security is being stepped up ahead of Joe Biden's presidential inauguration on Wednesday. Earlier, we spoke with our correspondent, Jagruti Dave, in Washington for more.
Yeah, well, Joe Biden took a break from his preparations for his inauguration by joining his Vice President-elect Kamala Harris and his wife Jill, the soon-to-be First Lady of the United States, to help in Philadelphia with a food charity, packing boxes of food for those in need to mark and encouraged everyone to commemorate the day by having a day of service. President Donald Trump issued a proclamation where he encouraged all Americans to recommit themselves to Dr. King's dream by engaging in acts of service to others, to their community, and to the nation. But he also, on MLK Day, had the publication of something called the 1776 report, which argued that the civil rights movement has effectively turned into identity politics, which he and supporters of his view as damaging. So again, a signal of, despite calls for unity, there's still much divisions present in America on this day, as MLK Day was being commemorated by many across the country. We know that around 25,000 National Guard troops are pouring into Washington, D.C. to help with security, to make sure that there is no further unrest of the kind that we saw on January the 6th. Around 750 active duty troops are also in position to help with security, many of them with specialist skills in security measures. We are seeing streets around the Capitol being barricaded, being blocked off from pedestrians and traffic. There's going to be searches of vehicles and security checkpoints at those locations. We've seen the Capitol is effectively a fortress ring-fenced off by steel barricades. And, you know, it's an inauguration like no other, with security measures at an unprecedented high.
Well, Trump has made an unconventional president of the United States for speaking out boldly. That included many astonishing and even questionable takes on media and politics. Here's a quick look at some of them.
Don't be rude. Attacking us. Can you give us a question? Don't be rude. No, I'm not going to give you a question. I'm not going to give you a question. Can you stay categorical? You are fake news. Sir, go ahead. Can you stay categorical?
And I love all people, rich or poor. But in those particular positions, I just don't want a poor person. Does that make sense? Does that make sense?
North Korea best not make any more threats to the United States. They will be met with fire and fury like the world has never seen.
And then we fell in love, okay? No, really. He wrote me beautiful letters, and they're great letters.
I'm very consistent. I'm a very stable genius. I could be the most popular person in Europe. I could run for any office if I wanted to, but I don't want to.
When during the campaign, I would say Mexico's going to pay for it. Obviously, I never said this, and I never meant they're going to write out a check. I said they're going to pay for it.
They say walls don't work. Walls work 100%.
You know, it used to be, I used to get great press until I ran for politics. I mean, I used to be the king of getting good press. I was very good at it.
This is a flu. This is like a flu.
It's going to disappear. One day, it's like a miracle. It will disappear. Every one of these doctors said, how do you know so much about this? Maybe I have a natural ability. Maybe I should have done that instead of running for president.
And on a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the response to this crisis?
I'd rate it a 10. I think we've done a great job. Hydroxychloroquine. Try it, if you'd like. And then I see the disinfectant. Is there a way we can do something like that by injection? Pelosi is a sick woman. She's got a lot of problems, a lot of mental problems. The masks, it's going to be really a voluntary thing. You can do it. You don't have to do it. I'm choosing not to do it. So I said to my people, slow the testing down, please.
Well, Trump will soon be gone from the White House, but he certainly won't be easily forgotten. Let's turn to Russia now, where a judge has ordered the Kremlin critic Alexei Navalny to be detained for 30 days pending trial. Navalny was arrested on Sunday night at Moscow's Sheremetyevo airport shortly after returning from Germany. On Monday, he was taken to a makeshift courtroom at a police station where he claimed to have been poorly treated, and around 200 Navalny supporters gathered outside demanding he be set free. Navalny was sent to Germany for treatment last August, with doctors there saying he was poisoned using a deadly nerve agent. But the Kremlin denies it was involved and says there's no evidence of poisoning. Let's take a short break. Your business news up next. Nigeria to sanction firms that violate laws governing the hiring of expatriates. And trade relations between the US and China enter a new chapter with the inauguration of Joe Biden on Wednesday.
There's more to this place than just glorious landscapes. There's more to it than just, say, Table Mountain or glorious, endless salt flats. There's more to it than countries that are home to some of the deepest mines in the world. There is so much more to this place, even if it is home to some of the finest diamonds on the planet. It is the sheer diversity of the people who call Southern Africa home and the relentless drive to make it a better place that make it so special. And we know that because this too is home. No one knows Southern Africa like we do. CGTN. See the difference.
In your business news, Nigeria says it will begin sanctioning companies that fail to comply with its expatriate quota policy in a move aimed at creating employment opportunities for locals. With unemployment in Nigeria rising every year, the government has resolved to enforce compliance following claims of violations by companies that favor expatriates. From Abuja, here's Kelechi Emekalam with the details.
It's been 7 years since Cameroonian Cecile Dombe migrated to Nigeria. In 2016, she set up her travels and tours company in the nation's capital, Abuja. Over 90% of her workers are Nigerians, some on full employment and others on internship. The internal procedure of Cecile's firm also supports career growth for local employees.
Actually have a case like that. He came as an intern. After his internship, he said, okay, could I stay? We negotiated the term and agreement. We gave him a 3-month, we are giving him a 3-month probation. And then from there, so we have that career growth pattern. Yeah, we are satisfied with the Nigerian staff so far.
Unlike Cecile's, several foreign-owned companies have been faulted for not complying with the expatriate quota policy. Recently, government launched a task force to monitor and enforce implementation.
The whole management and every part of it is just expatriates, and the only indigents in poor are cleaners and security men. It's very important for the health of the company itself. They may boycott your products in the country because there are negative adverse publicity against the expatriate company.
From demanding higher pay to the lack of willingness to learn, some businesses are faced with several challenges from local personnel. So looking to hire from the international labor market becomes a more viable option. And that has impacted on expatriates' decision to integrate more locals into higher levels.
I don't think they are really tapping into that opportunity the government has put in place for them to be learning on that, to be studying, because actually is studying the expatriate to be able, when that position left, to be able to take over. That's actually it. Now, Nigerian, when you go to the labor market, it's more about how much they can make. They want to make the same money with that expatriate.
Nigeria is looking to rebuild its battered economy, and government's been opening its doors to foreign investors and promoting policies to make it easier for such businesses to thrive. But authorities say they would not hold back on sanctioning foreign organizations that deny Nigerians job opportunities, even at the management levels. Kelechi Emekalam, CGTN Abuja, Nigeria.
Official data shows that China's GDP in 2020 exceeded 100 trillion yuan, or about $1.4 trillion. Now that's a 2.3% increase on 2019. It is expected to be the only major economy to post growth in the pandemic-ravaged year, with other economies looking to find their feet again in 2021 and 2022. Many experts say there's never been a greater need for global integration and economic globalization. That's something China's President Xi Jinping has called for in the recent past. Here's CGTN's Chuck Tinte with more.
In his speech at the World Economic Forum in Davos in 2017, President Xi Jinping called for joint efforts to advance economic globalization.
No matter how difficult it is impossible to stop the pace of human progress. When encountering difficulties, don't blame yourself or others. Don't give up confidence nor evade responsibility. Just work together to overcome difficulties.
The appeal has been echoed widely and repeatedly, especially when the world is faced with daunting challenges, such as the coronavirus pandemic.
President Xi underlined the importance of global cooperation and multilateralism, and that we are in a win-win world and not a zero-sum world. So when we trade with each other, it will also create jobs, it will also create additional growth.
China has been keen to point out it didn't develop alone. For instance, the China-Myanmar oil and gas pipeline project is seen by many as an international model of mutual benefit and win-win cooperation. During the pandemic, this pilot project under the China-proposed Belt and Road Initiative has provided jobs and opportunities for social development in Myanmar.
The China-Myanmar oil and gas pipeline project fully reflects the coordination, linkage, fairness and inclusiveness proposed by President Xi at Davos. The project can not only provide energy for China, but is also conducive to Myanmar's development.
And China is not only a beneficiary of economic globalization, but also a contributor. Over the past 4 years, the number of pilot free trade zones in China has increased to 21, while its International Import Expo is getting more and more popular. Furthermore, China and Europe saw more than 12,000 freight train trips in 2020. Many saw these services as life channels in the joint effort against the pandemic.
From China to Europe, from China to Wuxi is currently at this moment 100% booked. As we speak about January, there's no possibility to book a train, so the traffic is very busy right now.
The first China-Europe freight train in 2021 has arrived in the Eastern Europe Transfer Center in Poland. But much more is expected to be delivered from China, not just to Europe, but all over the world. Chuck Tinte, CGTN.
With U.S. President-elect Joe Biden to be inaugurated on Wednesday, China-U.S. relations are also set to enter a new chapter, especially with regards to trade. CGTN's Chu Huao spoke with an economist on the two countries' latest bilateral trade figures and what that means for the future.
According to China's customs regulator, the country's trade surplus with the U.S. climbed over 7% in 2020, standing at nearly $320 billion. Export to the U.S. grew 8.4%, while imports grew 10.1%. So why did the trade surplus grow?
There are two factors at play. One is the coronavirus, which stalled U.S. manufacturing. This forced the U.S. to import from China, especially electronic and pandemic-related products. The second is America's consumption. It remained robust thanks to the stock market and unemployment subsidies. This provided Americans the money needed to buy Chinese products.
Remember, when President Donald Trump took office 4 years ago, he made narrowing the gap with China on trade his top priority. He accused China of ripping off the U.S. and stealing America's jobs. That's why he started the trade war with China. Trump vowed to cut the U.S. trade deficit. His main tactic, slapping heavy tariffs on Chinese goods. In 2018, Trump announced the imposition of 25% tariffs on $250 billion worth of Chinese imports. In 2019, another 10% tariffs kicked in on the remaining $300 billion worth of Chinese products. As Trump prepares to leave office, not only is the U.S. trade deficit with China not narrowed, it actually got wider. And this was even true before the pandemic hit. So his trade policy on China has failed almost completely.
Trump's trade war has hurt his own people. American farmers are going out of business as China makes purchases elsewhere. Consumers are paying extra on commodities due to the tariffs, and factory jobs have not come back because of the global industrial chain.
Well, objectively speaking, no one can walk away from a trade war and say, I've won. We all suffer from it. The silver lining is Joe Biden is taking office, and many say he's much more predictable and he respects the WTO's rules. But that doesn't mean he'll necessarily go soft on China. In an interview with the NPR last August, Biden claimed the U.S. is going after China the wrong way.
We make up 25% of the world's economy, but we poked our finger in the eye of all of our allies out there.
He said the U.S. should gather its allies to pressure China to change its behavior. When it comes to tariffs, Biden said in December that he would not immediately remove tariffs on China, as he moves to develop a coherent strategy against Beijing. So what will this strategy be?
It's interesting that Biden's cabinet is filled with people who have backgrounds in law. So he's likely to go back to using rule-based tactics against China. Like Obama, he'll pivot to Asia again, working with America's allies in the region to contain China. Though he may not continue the trade war, he may use tariffs as a bargaining chip in negotiating with China.
Speaking of U.S. allies in Asia Pacific, most of them have signed onto RCEP, a trading deal with a lot of potential. This suggests America's allies are not necessarily China's enemies. They could also be our partners. So whatever strategy the U.S. is brewing, one thing is clear. Both economies are so intertwined that their economic ties will be hard to break.
Chinese-backed British automaker MG Motor is set to launch an electric car for the Tunisian market as demand for environmentally friendly vehicles rises. Sales of electric cars registered a 40% year-on-year increase and topped $2.1 million globally in 2019, surpassing 2018, which in itself was a record year. From Tunis, here's CGTN's Adnan Chouachi with more.
MG Motor has successfully test-driven its EZS, an all-electric urban SUV in Tunisia. The car, which is the first electric vehicle model to be introduced to the Tunisian electric car market, is described as the family-friendly electric car that is designed for drivers who want to associate the advantages of a zero-emissions vehicle with practicality and style.
We've organized a road trip with professional pilots and clients of MG Motor. We are proud of the achievement of this new vehicle, which is full of innovations. It's the first electric car to travel from the north to the south of the country and to cross thousands of miles. We installed some EV charging stations. The operation is successful.
The CEO of MG Cars Tunisia noted that Chinese companies top electric car battery producers in the world. Khalid Belhiba added that the industry sales are forecasted to triple by 2025, with China projected to lead the market. Sales of electric vehicles will ultimately account for 54% of light cars by 2040, projections from the Automobile Industry Show.
Any consumer automatically thinks of China when he plans to buy an electric vehicle because 50% of electric cars are made in China. 50% of electric vehicle EV charging stations are made in China. China's electric car batteries are the best in the world. China has succeeded in this challenge on the economic, technological and environmental level.
The National Company of Oil Distribution and the Tunisian Company of Electricity and Gas signed a contract on the installation of electric vehicle EV charging stations. The project provides the setting of the infrastructure for EV recharging in Agile gas stations as part of a pilot project to promote electric transport and vehicles in Tunisia.
We are pushing for the adoption of electric cars by providing the infrastructure and EV charging stations nationwide. Yet, the cost of electric vehicles remains much higher than an average gasoline-powered vehicle. The Ministry of Finance is to offer incentives and reduce taxes to encourage people to buy electric cars.
The Tunisian government aims to reduce the consumption of fossil fuels and reinforce energy efficiency in the transport sector, Authorities have set up a committee tasked with devising the national strategy for the integration of electric vehicles in the country.
The Minister of Industry, Energy and Mines declared that since the Paris Climate Agreement of 2016, Tunisia has been endeavoring to reduce its greenhouse gas emissions, projecting to reduce its carbon intensity by 41% in 2030. Aden Shawishi, CGTN, Tunis.
Time for a short break. Here's what's still ahead on the program. A Sudanese movie is among 15 films from Egypt's Al Ghuna Festival in the race for an Oscar.
Join us in Global Business and see Africa through our eyes.
The greatest journeys, the greatest sights, the greatest adventures.
Here in Qanater, this weir allows the locals to walk on water.
We're far more than just TV news. We're your passport to the wonders of Africa.
To bring you stories of struggle, survival and hope.
So let's explore. CGTN. See the difference.
Egypt's Al Ghuna Film Festival has become one of the most recognized in the region. This week, the festival announced that 15 of its films have become their nation's pick for the Academy Awards nominations in the Best Foreign Film category. Here's CGTN's Adel Al-Makhroui with more.
With a tiny Red Sea resort town as their base, the organizers of Al Ghuna Film Festival understood that the event needed to have an edge if it was to successfully compete with the world's top film festivals. To stand out, they made two decisions. The first was to ensure that all films screened get their first air premiere in Al Ghuna. Secondly, they created a strong filmmaking platform.
Our film festival is not only a platform of screening the best films in the world, at the same time try to participate on doing these films, and because of also the nature of Al Ghuna as a city, because it's an isolated city, it's not a big city, not a capital. Normally, we invite a lot of professionals to come to attend the festival. That's why we believe that co-production market is a very important part and could be done better than any of other film festivals in the capitals of a big city. It's like a cinema conference.
That commitment has seen Al Ghuna Film Festival excel in the competitive sector. This year, the festival says that 15 of the films screened or incubated in its programs have been their nation's pick for the Academy Awards. It broke its own regional record of 13 films in 2019.
Last year, it was the biggest achievement, because from the 5 films which have the last nomination of the Oscar, 4 films already screened in Al Ghuna before, and the winner was Parasite, was in Al Ghuna. This year we have a lot of important films which we managed to in Corona and when many festivals were stopped.
Among the projects Al Ghuna helped and which have been nominated for the Academy is the Tunisian film The Man Who Sold His Skin. Jordan's 200 meters and Egypt's When We're Born are also included. Last year's edition brought Sudan's You Will Die at 20 to light. It has become the first Sudanese film considered by the Academy in 2020. When it started 4 years ago, Al Ghuna offered $60,000 to support new film projects. This year, that amount reached $350,000.
These numbers is unique numbers internationally and unique in the region, and this help other festivals to to push in that direction. So for example, Cairo Film Festival, Cairo Film Connection, which normally had only 30,000 before Laguna establishing, now they go this year up to 200,000, which is also wonderful.
Beside helping in the production, Elgona also invites film distributors to facilitate a decent global viewership for Arab films that graduate from its programs. Adil Mahroui, CGTN, Cairo.
Time for a short break. Your sports news coming up next. Nigeria's Chinonso Eche has set the world record in freestyle football at just 12 years old.
How would you create your legend? On the fields, on the tracks, in the arenas of Africa. Were you born to be a player? Could this moment be yours? Sports Scene. Find your game.
Africa Live. Find your voice.
Nigeria's Chinonso Eche has set a world record for the most consecutive football touches in 1 minute while balancing a second ball on his head. The 12-year-old, who has become an online sensation, says he's planning to take his skills global when he grows up.
Chinonso Eche is a young boy from the city of Warri in southern Nigeria. He has become an online sensation with videos of his tricks attracting thousands of viewers. Inspired by footage of famous footballers around the world, Chinonso says he mostly taught himself the art of the sport.
Nobody teach me, but my father made impact in my life by showing me some videos of Lionel Messi, Ronaldinho, Okocha, and I picked up from there.
Chinonso recently managed 111 football touches in 60 seconds, while a second ball balanced on his head, earning himself a place in the 2021 edition of the Guinness World Records, the first time that it's included in the annual reference book.
Before, my friends was cursing me, laughing at me, but when I break a record, my friends said they want to be like me. My dream is to become a footballer and international freestyler and travel all over the world.
The young boy's next target is 2,000 consecutive touches while balancing a ball on his head. Sadiq Shaban, CGTN.
And let's go to the English